I'm Adam Post, and welcome to another episode of Welcome to the Dungeon with
Ben Knudsen
and Andy P.
Today we're going to talk about NPCs and why Ben can't stop but hit on them all the time.
Alright, that's taken out of context, but true.
So Ben, why don't you get us started since I already pushed you under the bus?
Well, honestly, NPCs are my way of interacting with players, and sometimes when a group is all combat and no role-playing at all, players get upset. So that's why I throw in NPCs. Usually it's those who are outsmart the players and try to be better than the players, but also those who are not, so that the NPCs can actually feel like they're progressing in a story and that they have goals in the story. Like, if you have an NPC who is stronger than them, that means that they want to get stronger than that NPC. Until the point where they realize most NPCs are below us. What's the point then? Like, you're a god among men. So you want to keep the players challenged, and that's how I use NPCs a lot.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not as good as Ben as making the NPCs because I didn't have, until I met Ben, I didn't have as much love for the NPC. Like, I mean, even in one of my campaigns, I had a guy called Barely There. Because, like, I just threw in NPCs with no love and no care. And then when I was trying to make the bad guys or the good guys in an anti-hero type of way, it was easier for me to make characters who were larger than life and ones that would go toe-to-toe with my evildoers, so to speak. Like, I don't know. It was. I put a lot more work into them. I actually had pages done up and did some drawings and things like that, just to kind of get more of a picture for my players. And I like to use the NPCs to kind of herd the campaign into the direction I want it to go. So, like, I'll have an NPC work with the group, and then he'll get maybe killed off or captured. And I try to make them care enough about the person that they're not just going to let them die. I hope when I make the character that he'll be worth something to the party and they want to keep him around. Remember the wizard?
Yeah.
That as soon as he got killed, I mean, before he was even there, everyone was like, this dude's a liability.
Yeah.
And he was just trying to help.
We were going to kill him before he even died.
Yeah, you guys were just so... Well, and you have to be that way when you guys are all bad guys or anti-heroes.
Yeah.
You have to watch your back. And it was a good NPC to have there because he kind of herded the thing along until you guys got out and good enough on your own at higher levels to continue the story without his help.
He was our crutch for a good portion until we got higher levels.
Yeah, like you said, he was like a crutch.
Yeah. What about you, Adam?
I generally use NPCs as just, basic. They're not really important until there is an important one. Like, I found, like, with shopkeepers and stuff, like, I know my brother would always have a habit of, like, oh, I want this. Okay, that's 10 gold. He'll be like, persuasion, how about 5 gold? And it's like, I just don't even write up stats because I feel most shopkeepers are just like, no.
Okay.
We're not negotiating with it. But on the other hand, like, playing Star Wars for sure and some other campaigns, I've always thrown in an NPC that's just kind of like a super badass to help the party out.
Yeah.
But then he kind of goes missing due to space stations blowing up or just anything else. And so where he's not always there, I just feel he's there when needed and somebody the party can kind of care about. It really just depends, because currently the campaign I'm running, you guys really haven't met any noteworthy NPCs that I've needed to make up stats for.
Yeah. Well, for me personally, like, I like making up stats and I like rolling up stats because it's the closest thing that I get to playing sometimes. So for like NPCs, like shopkeepers and commoners, I have like 2 or 3 sheets, character sheets, just for commoners. That's just with common levels for Pathfinders.
Sorry about that.
Common levels for Pathfinders are just making them basic, like maybe fighters if they're guards, or low levels, so that they can actually have. It's a way for me to put more heart into just nothing. Because if I'm trying to make something up on the spot, trying to create names, trying to do stuff like that, it's a lot harder when I have nothing to back myself up on. Like, so.
I get it with the names, because a lot of people ask what their names are, and a lot of people are just like, Steve.
Yes, the whole city of Steve.
Oh, that was just the first one that popped in my head, because that's all Dylan brings up is Steve.
I want to go back to your Star Wars NPC though. I really liked how John, was it?
Yep.
Yeah.
I really liked how John carried the story along, and how just when you think there was no way John could survive, he showed up and helped you in like the next dire situation. And I think you did a really killer job on that. I enjoyed playing in your Star Wars campaign for that.
I mean, to touch on that, John, I take when I make that character, I take a lot from the Rambo movies and Metal Gear Solid, because those are 2 of my like favorite movies and video games, and I just like that character type. So that's what my John's always based off of, and so he normally just uses a really sweet bow that all the players are like, oh, I want that. But of course they can't get until way late in the game if they ever get that far. But yeah, I like to be able to, like, because I noticed in Ben, in the campaign I'm playing with you, the Hell campaign, there's NPCs and they kind of just stick with us to fill in potential gaps the party doesn't have, like healing or whatnot. And like, so right now in my campaign, I feel like we have a relatively well-rounded party, so I didn't need to throw in an NPC to make up for anything.
Yeah. Because in the campaign you're speaking of, we have the healers and we have the frontline people and we have the range. So we have everything covered. We just don't have arcane, which honestly a group can go with or without at this point in time.
Yeah.
Because we're still pretty low level, and what we've been going against is basically just smash and bash.
It's going to be rougher once you guys need to start identifying awesome magical items.
I know, that's going to be fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like the Sword of Hitan meets Urugi.
Yes.
Don't say that.
Well, we got...
Don't say what, Ben? The Amakakeru Ryo no Hirameki?
Not the Amakakeru Ryo no Hirameki.
Yes, the Amakakeru Ryo no Hirameki.
The Amakakeru Ryo no Hirameki that can't be blocked?
Oh my
Exactly.
gosh. Wow.
Welcome to Rurouni Kenshin, everybody. One of my favorite animes because I love samurais.
Me and Adam do this all the time when we're gaming a game called Bessem. And we just keep going back and forth until one of us screws it up, which is usually me.
Yeah, 99.9% of the time is Andy. But anyways, back on track here to NPCs. Like, I guess, like I said, for most of the stuff, I just use the NPC CODEX for basic stats. Names is something I should probably come up with for some of the characters. I have the important ones there. The rest of them is like Joe Bob and Bob Joe. They're just insignificant. Their names don't even matter.
Yeah. If I have to make a NPC off the bat, I would just pull it out of the NPC Codex or out of the monster manual. Some monster manuals have like enemy characters or things like that, just to get something. But if I have time to prepare, then yeah, I'm going to make something that's memorable. Something that's more a part of me, or at least part of me that I can act out to help out others.
Well, here's a question for you, Ben, since you've been DMing this a lot longer than I have. Let's say, for example, NPCs that are bad guys. If I have a party of level 3 heroes, 6 of them, what's an average level to make an NPC bad guy that's not too overpowered, but not just going to get trampled on either? So,
from both 3.5 and Pathfinders, where I usually take most of my information of this, you usually want to take a group of 4, combine, add up all their levels, then divide that by 4. So you can do that with 6 characters too, and so on and so forth. The main point is after you get over 4 NPCs, you want to boost the CR 1 higher. So once you hit 4 to 6, you want to boost it up 1.
I believe for Pathfinders, it's specifically like 4 to 5 is average.
Yep.
If you're 3 or less, you lower it. If you're 5 or higher, for everyone higher than 5, you add 1.
Yep. But you also have to feel out the group, which is something that you don't want to do on the first session.
Yeah.
But you want to get used to the group. Because if you throw in a caster and it's all frontline fighters, if that caster can get a decent level spell out, the fighters aren't going to do too great. But also on the opposite hand, if the fighters can get up and close on someone, then the wizard is toast. There's no other way.
I guess I'm talking level-wise because I've heard, like, realistically, if I have a party of 4 players that are all level 4 or whatever, I heard that an NPC made, like, a character should be level 4 as well. And I feel like that's just not the way it works.
No.
Because I've played games where I've been the same level and wiped a party.
Yep.
But normally, especially in Pathfinders, it shouldn't be one character able to wipe the whole party.
I recommend having the enemy at least 2 to 3 levels higher. Because that gives the enemy more hit points, more abilities to use. And if it's one-on-one, then you might even have to go even higher than that. It's going to be based on if the group has a paladin that can smite, or has a cleric that can heal, or has a wizard that has AoEs, or a frontline fighter or barbarian that just deals a lot of damage. Everything that you're going to calculate into this is going to vary based on classes and personality type. Because if they're also single-minded type of characters, like I'm just going to run in and hit things, well, then you can compensate for that. But if they're more crafty, if they can think outside the box, if they can do stuff like that, then it's a little bit harder to calculate. I've had groups fight dozens of enemies and barely come out alive, or dozens of enemies and come out perfectly fine. I've also had groups that fought only one dude and almost team kill, or a group of dudes that almost team kill. It's going to basically be how the DM wants to play the NPCs and how you roll, because there's always that chance.
I guess another thing I got, because it's one of the moments that stands out for me because I really enjoyed it, was Norman versus Kronos. How much higher was Kronos level-wise than Norman?
Norman was level 9?
I believe 10. I was level 9 or 10 at that point in time.
He was only level 12.
Okay.
That's the big thing about that situation was it was a barbarian versus barbarian. 2-weapon fighter against one guy who just wants to take one big hit. Then you got fighting styles who you go in for multiple hits, trying to hit an AC, which is actually plausible with him because he's a barbarian with a lower AC, but your damage output compared to his was roughly about the same. The only thing that messed you over was the magical item part.
Yes, Kronos had lots of magical items compared to my 0.
Yeah. I wasn't expecting you to go against him. I was expecting the paladin to go against him. That's how. And also, as when you're making an NPC, I'm glad that you kind of brought this up, is items. Because an NPC who has a lot of magical items is very powerful, very destructive, but is also very sought after. So when you're putting a magical item on an NPC, the PCs are just going to go for that as soon as possible because, hey, players love magic. So when I give an NPC a magical item like a necklace that can heal themselves, that's going to be great for a barbarian, a fighter who can't heal themselves.
Yeah, but, fuck you, Kronos.
I actually, when I made Kronos the first time, I had made the exact same character layout, and I gave him all the items that I got in the campaign, and that was basically what I made. I just made my character from that point, and at that point in time, we didn't have a good healer. We had a very mediocre healer. So I was able to get the Necklace of Healing, which helped me out. In your group, you had a decent healer, so you really didn't need that, even for your when you came in.
Yeah.
So that's why Kronos got that, and your group hasn't gotten anything like that. But with items is, if you have someone who has a very prominent item, something that's in the book or out, specially made, you're also going to think that PCs are going to want that too. So
and also depending on how strong the magical items they have affects their challenge rating as well.
Yep. Giving a +1 item to a creature, like a weapon or anything, basically puts it up by 1 CR. If you've got a +1 longsword and a +1 bow, you really don't need the CR difference in that one, so you don't need to make it too higher. But if you had a +1 longsword and then a belt of giant strength, that's boosting its attack even more, then you're going to change the CR. So it's going to base, that part is on items. So, and then items, stats, armors, all different types of things.
So there's a lot more to NPCs than just characters.
Yeah. If I'm playing an NPC and not even thinking about how he's going to fight or how he's going to work in combat, I'm thinking personality-wise first. If I want to make kind of a happy-go-lucky kind of character, I don't really pick the class first. I pick personality because it helps me to role-play it better. If I'm picking a more serious character or a depressing character, then I'm going to pick something not super happy-go-lucky for a class. I'm going to keep it more closer to myself and closer to actually how I feel the character would go along the lines. Just like if you're making a paladin, you're not going to make a super extremely depressed paladin, especially when you're lawful good, simply for the fact that you have to be willing and you have to be able to do help out others and be happy you're helping out others. You can't just be oh, I gotta help out this guy now because my alignment says I have to. No,
you would want to, yeah.
But if I'm a rogue and I'm a happy-go-lucky rogue, you better be not an assassin because that's not going to work. Assassins usually are very serious characters, very blunt on what they're going to do, and then they're also very... Assassins are also good with working with parties that are competent. The only problem with assassins are that if something hits the fan, assassins are usually the first ones that will be target is not in my area, I will bail. So you gotta kind of play that out. You're not gonna be the first one in the front lines. You're not gonna be ready for a battle yeah, let's go. You're gonna be okay, you're gonna probably die. You're probably going to die.
That's why my ninja's primary weapon is a Kusarigama.
So you got distance and you can bail.
And I have a pretty nice stealth for being level 1 too, so that helps.
Not as good as if you were a goblin.
Not as good as if I was a goblin.
Oh, you guys and goblins.
But anyway, I think that's about it.
Yeah.
Unless anybody
Did we want to do our perfect game size before we take off? What our perfect or our dream?
Sure.
Yeah.
Since you brought it up, we might as well.
Yeah. I don't know. I really like 4 to 5 people, but if you're starting out, I think a group of 4 is where you want to be, and you want to have kind of a good mix. You don't want to have 3 rogues and a paladin, or you don't. You kind of want to have a good mixture to get the party to go on this mission. You got to have a reason why they're there or why they want to work together. Otherwise, you get into that gray area where people will just go off on their own and you're not keeping the party together, and that makes it really hard. So if I was DMing for my first session, I would want 4 people or maybe 5 depending on the group.
Why?
I would probably go with at least.
Jensen, drop some cards.
Oh my God, Nate! Thanks for being quiet during our podcast. Say hi to everybody.
Hello.
So, anyways, back on track here.
Me personally, I like only 4 people. Even my max of 5 is pushing it sometimes. It's just after 5, you got yourself being pulled in so many directions. My first campaign had 3 people, and I felt like I was scattered, and I was like a deer in headlights. But after I got used to it, and I got better at multitasking, and I still feel, even with sometimes 4 people, I feel like I'm leaving someone out, and I try not to. And that is my biggest concern, is when I'm DMing and there's so many, like, even 4 or 5 people, it's hard to pick out who I need to focus on, real. What about you?
I prefer 4 to 5 from a player standpoint and a DM standpoint. I can do 6 and be okay with that as a GM and as a player. But definitely anything more than 6 starts to take away all the time from players and just makes things go too long. And that's when, for me, I start getting out of the game and start goofing off a lot more. Like, when we play D&D here on Wednesday nights, since there's such a large party, I'm basically just goofing off the whole time because I really am not that invested. I mean, bitch. All right, things just look like they got a little screwed up, so I'm going to apologize for that because apparently, you know, everybody wants to talk now. Anyway, yeah, so, but like when I'm gaming with Ben, when our play group is just 4 people, I'm really focused and we're not goofing off as much. They're still goofing off and having fun, but it's not nearly as much, and we actually tend to get stuff accomplished.
Yeah.
Unlike Wednesday nights where it takes us like 6 hours to do absolutely nothing.
Yeah, that's also one of the things I like as a player is when I have a smaller group and I'm playing in it, because I don't have rounds that take 10 minutes. I don't have to deal with other players who are like constantly going through their stuff and constantly thinking of what should I do now. I get it, some casters are a little bit harder to do because you got to think of what you're going to do a little bit more. But usually I can't handle that after so long.
Don't you gear people up for like 5-second turns?
I've been trying to. I've been working on that, but that's a different topic.
Well, no, that's something I agree with, and I was going to bring up anyways, is when people take too long. I mean, like, even in a group of 4 people, you have 3 other people who have turns before you or in between you or around you, plus any of the bad guys you're fighting, plus any NPCs. You should at least have a general idea of what your action's going to be. I know it's a little bit easier for classes that are just like bad guy smash.
Yeah.
You know, as compared to, well, do I need to flank this guy? Do I need to cast this spell? But you should still have a rough idea.
Yeah.
Now, naturally, if your idea is to cast Fireball on this group of 12 guys and they all spread out, and it's no longer, it's a little understandable.
Yeah. When I'm playing a casting style class and I have that issue, I still want to try to keep it going. So I'll go to my standard, which is basically just magic missile at a guy, or some sort of singling out, and then I will wait for the next turn to readjust myself. I just like keeping combat moving as a player, and as a DM, I want to keep that going. It's just in some groups, it's not possible.
Yeah. And then sometimes you got pricks like me who are like, hold on, paging through the books. Aha!
Yeah, I can get out
No,
of it.
never mind, that doesn't work. But, I guess, Andy, you got anything else to add to this topic?
No, I'm pretty good.
Okay.
I think next week, I'm not really sure what we'll cover, but tune in next week, we'll have something for you. This has been your host, Adam.
Ben,
And Andy P.
Welcome to the dungeon.